All right, welcome to Roots of Reality Experiences. I'm joined by Susan Molinari, who is a former member of the U.S. House of Representatives and was elected as a Republican to serve the New York City-based congressional district 5 times in Congress, where she was one of 8 Republicans elected to serve in a leadership role for the first GOP majority in 40 years, and was known for a record of bipartisanship. So, Susan, thanks for coming on today.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, when did you first get into Republican politics?
I was born into it. My father was very active in Republican Party politics in Staten Island, and so it was not unusual for us to have, the county chair over for dinner or, work on a campaign. I had spent a good amount of my childhood putting up stickers on people's doors saying thank you for flying your flag, all those sort of things. We would have on Sundays. I'm an only child, so my mother, my father, and I, we would describe what we wanted to do for the day, and then we had to try and build a coalition and vote on it. So it's kind of all I've ever known. And actually, going back even farther, his father served in the New York State Assembly.
Wow. Okay. So this is like a family tradition then, basically.
I'm a nepo baby. Let's just put it out there.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing though is like when I hear about like families that have served in politics for generations, it's also just interesting to see how many people like how that becomes such an important part of their life and decisions and how things impact their society. Because there are lots of people that will maybe never pay attention to politics at all in their entire lives. Maybe their families never
Sure.
cared. So it is interesting to see like how families historically have kind of drifted into the political sphere or outside of it. So
Yeah, I mean, it's just for me, for example, I was never afraid of public speaking
yeah,
because it was not unusual for me to be at a county convention and they would say to my dad, who's going to nominate you? And he would say, my 13-year-old daughter. Surprise. So, I was doing it before in a kind of safe setting before
sure.
I knew I was supposed to be afraid of it. And again, just, my dad in particular brought so much passion to what he wanted to do for the people of Staten Island and Brooklyn, that it did become, it had to hit you. And interestingly, I was in the New York City Council when he was in Congress, and we would work together all the time. Where I would be like, "Look, I think I can get 5 million for this project.
Sure.
Can you match it?" And then it flipped. He went home and ran for borough president, and that's when I ran for his congressional seat. So we worked together on closing the dump, building a new stadium, doing all these projects hand in hand.
Yeah. So when was it that you first decided you wanted to run for an elected office?
Well, let's see. I was 26, and my dad's team, right, kept coming to me saying, we want you someday to run for office. It's a great name, very visible. And so I was looking for jobs. I couldn't get a job. So I thought, you know what, I'll run for the city council. I'll do a good job. And then maybe, and even if I lose, and thinking I would lose, um, I'll make a name for myself so that some PR agency or corporation will hire me to do their comms work.
Yeah.
As it turned out, I won by 161 votes after a 10-day recount. And
Jeez.
it doesn't end there. I became the minority leader of the city council because I was the only Republican in city government at the time.
Wow. Okay. So this was a really close call then that totally changed your life.
Yes, totally.
That's amazing. Okay.
I mean, up to the point where I married another member of Congress and have 2 kids. So,
Right.
it wasn't just a professional change in life.
Yeah, it's like completely life-changing
Yeah.
altogether. Yeah. That's awesome. Um then okay, so what was the Republican platform? What was the party platform at the time when you first served?
Well, who honestly, who knows what the party platform is? I know, abortion was in it because I was very vocal about trying to take it out of the party platform. I
Sure.
did not believe that something that's so personal should be, made so political, which
Right.
of course it still is. But it was. I know this sounds ridiculous, but it was a kinder, gentler day. We worked closely with Democrats. We might campaign against them. But if we had a project that was going on in New York City, we would join together and we would get it done. So it's changed so dramatically that I hear now Republicans and don't even go over to the Democratic side to sit during
Yeah.
a debate.
Yeah.
So yeah, the party was so much more moderate, so much more. I mean, remember we used to always talk about the big tent and inclusivity. And actually, when I ran for vice chair of the conference, one of the people who nominated me said, okay, she's much more. I mean, I voted for gun control, family medical leave, but she's what we need. We don't need a whole bunch of her to be in the majority,
Right.
but we need to appeal to people who look and think like she does.
Yeah.
You could see that doesn't happen today.
Right. Yeah.
Ask
Things are quite
ask
a bit
Miss
different.
Cheney. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it is crazy, and it is interesting also because you talk about how oh, it used to be like this, and I think about people growing up and seeing politics today as high schoolers or college
Mhm.
students, and like this is the only politics they know now. Like this is
Right.
normal, and
I
that
know. And,
it's kind of concerning to wonder like if they think this is normal, then how bad can we let it get from here if they just come to accept that as being just a fact of life.
right. And who's going to want to step up and do it?
Right. Yeah, it definitely kills a lot of talented people probably from having an interest in it.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is the real shame. And again, just the fact that we would look at somebody who disagrees with us across the aisle as the enemy
Yeah,
is just very wearing. It got intensified when we took over in 1994. Newt Gingrich is a bit of a sharp personality,
sure.
but we did work across the aisle. I mean, I was one of 35, maybe more than that, Republican members who worked with the Clinton administration and with Democrats to help pass the crime bill,
Yeah.
totally sanctioned by Gingrich and others. Like that was okay. He would look at it and say, I have 40 members who are getting, the heck beat out of them at home. So we need to get them to be able to vote for this.
Right.
I mean, so that's just, one example of where the other thing that changed, which people don't talk about, but maybe it's so inside baseball, was there was such a strong, part of your tribe was the Republican Party, right? Part of your tribe was the committees you sat on.
Sure.
That was a very strong pull. Almost every committee, the chairman and the minority leader got along famously. And you would defend, a Democrat who would be in charge of the transportation committee would defend me.
Yeah.
Like that was just part of your family on the Hill, where that doesn't happen anymore either. And so, if even at that level of committee and subcommittee, you're not working constructively for the betterment of each other and each other's districts, it's kind of hard to think how once you get all 435 together, it's going to gel.
Yeah, that is pretty wild. I mean, I guess the only thing that's reminiscent of some sort of unity is I guess kind of the rivalry that sometimes occurs between like the Senate and the House, where you have like, okay,
Right.
senators do things differently than how members of the House, and they
Right.
kind of talk about each other as like, oh, these people aren't as
Oh, for
good.
sure, for sure, for sure.
So
No, there's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. We would oftentimes say, the Senate staffers thought they were more important than a member of Congress.
yeah, yeah,
And they
um,
did.
yeah. It's funny because you see that at the congressional level, and you also see it at like the state level. I've spent a lot of time working in state governments, and like they have the same type of divide. This sort of
Yeah,
uh, almost like I would call like a bipartisan rivalry between the Senate and the House.
absolutely. That is the one thing that unifies us now. Sure.
Um, so could you ever then foresee the Republican Party becoming focused around Donald Trump?
Wait, because I mean, it is the Republican Party. It is Donald Trump, right? I
Right.
mean, at this
Yeah.
point in time, yeah. And I don't know. I haven't changed my registration because I believe,
Sure.
I believe in a two-party system. I believe in so many of the values of the Republican Party. Um, but and I'm hoping that once Trump is out of the picture, if he ever goes out of the picture, which I don't think he will, because even if he lost this election, I'm assuming that he would say he's going to run again in 4 years so he
Yeah.
can continue to fundraise to pay his bills.
Right. Uh,
So he will still be a monster.
yeah.
I was going to say in the background, but no background for him.
Yeah. I mean, so it's crazy to think that, I mean, how could someone just come over and take over a major political party like that is completely crazy to me. I've never seen anything like it. Obviously, American history, I don't think there is an example of someone doing this in this way.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, particularly with what he says and what he stands
right.
for. I mean,
Yeah.
the guy said I could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue. He was correct, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you think back to the day he said John McCain's not a war hero,
Right.
and or the Access Hollywood tape, or and
Yeah.
then we could spend the rest of his time going through all the
The
awful things
laundry
he has said
list.
and done.
Yeah.
January 6th, right?
Yeah.
It would kill anybody,
Right.
but it doesn't make a dent in him.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like, and I think there's a role in terms that I think kind of the evolution of kind of technology and communications today has played in this. I feel like the age of the internet has completely blurred the lines in terms of what's reality and what's not.
Uh, yeah,
And
I'm sure that's a good point.
it seems like everyone's just kind of, you're able to pretty much just silo yourself in some echo chamber if you want to. And
Yes,
I mean, you used to be able to do that with the media. I think the media, if people who still watch cable TV can still do that very easily. But now it's like it's just reaching people who don't even follow politics. That
right.
they'll just hear a clip from some podcaster that they like, and all of a sudden that becomes their interpretation of the world around them. So
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, just the continuing self-affirmation.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I talk to really smart people who will look at me and say, January 6th was started by the FBI.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I hear that a lot. You can see that a lot on social media. It's crazy.
Like, wait, you're a lawyer, like you're a judge. What? How you saw it on TV?
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know how we get the Republican Party back. There are those days when you just think, God bless John McCain. If he were here,
Yeah.
he might be the guy that would stand up and rally the troops, if you will, in terms of those of us who find the former president abhorrent.
Yeah.
Clearly no one else is standing up. I mean, we had Larry Hogan. There are some, but none that have been able really to make a dent.
Yeah. I mean, you don't. I mean, yes, I know people have talked about like, George Bush obviously doesn't like Trump, but won't hasn't really said anything. And I
Yeah,
guess there's, for a former president, maybe it's awkward to take a role. But if you're ever going to take a stand on something, this seems like this would be kind of a good thing to do since
sure.
you may not ever recognize your country again otherwise. So
That's right. No, absolutely. And you're not alone. I don't know if you've seen the ad that came out from the Harris campaign that's called, what is it called? The Best People.
yeah,
Um, where I mean, it's so powerful where you have
sure,
like, several, leaders, military leaders, political leaders that were part of the Trump administration,
yeah,
saying damning things about him. The fact that Dick Cheney is supporting a Democrat,
yeah,
uh,
it's
you know,
wild.
it's wild. So, I guess I shake my head every day, honestly, to wonder why there's not more people joining in the effort to make sure that he doesn't get back to the White House.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that I've been really impressed with you and some other former Republicans that actually come out and rebuke him publicly and not be afraid to endorse another party member, someone from the other party like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden in 2020. I mean, I'm an independent, so I've no affiliation with the Democratic Party or the Republican Party,
Mhm.
but I've always found it quite strange that, partisan divides can become greater than just how you reflect on your own country as a whole. It's,
Absolutely. Well said. Absolutely well said. It is. I guess I never realized that either until we got to this point that
yeah,
there are people who will blindly follow, whoever the Republican nominee is, or, I do think so many people who are brilliant are want to see him reelected for the tax cuts.
sure.
and they've said as much to me. I was doing this thing, I was doing paisans for Harris the other day, and a couple of the Democrats came on and said, "Oh, you Republicans are so brave." I'm like, this isn't even a close call,
Sure.
right? This is not a close call. Every day I watch something that Donald Trump does, and now JD Vance. Like,
Yeah.
hello, women. Do you
Yeah.
hear what these people are saying about how much a priority we are in this
Right.
country? No,
Yeah.
unless you're having babies or looking pretty, doing what Donald Trump wants you to do. I'll just leave it there. You're of no value. I mean, I just don't understand how you can. Let's just take Trump out. You have JD Vance, who has said on a number of occasions, I mean, like, get childcare, get your grandparents to volunteer. It's like this, the reality for anybody in this country, but certainly for thinking women, which all women think. Ugh,
Yeah.
this is
It,
a
it's
very good therapy session for me.
I mean, I think everyone probably needs a therapy session at this point for what's going on. I mean, because it just shows, I think, in many ways, like, A, we have a lot of people that it appears that there's a lot of people that have entered the political realm that are pretty much just opportunists that will, kind of swing wherever the wind blows when it comes
Yeah,
to, you know, the Republican nominee. It is crazy. And I mean, I guess that, people have, I think Trump even said this once where he thought he could just, go in and bulldoze the Republican Party. And
yes,
clearly he did. Um,
yep,
it also suggests,
yes,
though, just how much we have kind of this information gap in society where, whether it's, a combination of really not being very good at educating society as a whole to kind of have
yeah,
critical thinking and common sense understanding of the world around them to where they're susceptible to being kind of tricked into, by a politician that's looking out for his own interests. um,
yeah,
and also just there's very little accountability that we have for, the media and the social media realms where not enough people are willing to just kind of step up and say, hey, this isn't right. So
the man hawks Bibles
yeah. Yeah.
and says, "This is the best Bible."
That's right.
What?
Bibles,
Does it say
shoes,
something different? Bible, sneakers,
NFT, cards
right?
now. That's great.
Right. I mean, this is a former president, which of course he did when he was in office with his
Yeah,
hotels and other properties.
sure.
Grifter just comes to mind with that whole family, but there's just nothing. I mean, it is so perverse to the way we think about any one of our former presidents
Yeah,
in terms of behavior that we expect from them.
right. I mean, yes, that is a great point because there's plenty of things that people can, critique about every American president in history, but you can't say that the president didn't believe in democracy. This is a first, I feel like.
Right?
I mean, this is the
It's
first
a
time I ever
first.
thought in my entire life as a historian that we have a former president that actually does not care about democracy and has more in common with, like Putin and Russia than,
Yes,
past American
yes,
presidents. So
yes, yes. And think about that. We didn't even talk about that. What this man promises to do. Like, is NATO going to be dissolved?
yeah, yeah,
Is Ukraine going to be? Are we done with Ukraine?
right.
There's just so many tariffs, tariffs. The world order is just going to be disrupted almost on day one. That's
Yeah.
hard to undo. My husband and I always have this conversation where you disagree with somebody on their domestic policy. Okay, all those people out there who disagree with Kamala Harris on one or two things, right?
Sure.
The next president can come in and undo it.
Yeah.
But when you get to international affairs and where the United States is on the world stage,
Right.
that's really hard to undo.
Yeah.
And he has been the most provocative anti-internationalist president we've ever had.
It is unbelievable. I mean, because you're going to lose a lot of trust. I mean, we've already lost trust. I think a lot of people. Well, I think a lot of allies, kind of now look at the U.S. as
Yeah.
kind of this. I'm not sure what's happening over there, and
Yeah,
I think if Trump gets elected again, that kind of kills a lot of the relationships, for
undoubtedly.
decades. Um,
Undoubtedly.
I have a lot of people. lot of friends in Europe, and a lot of them will talk about how the scariest thing about the 2024 election is that it impacts our lives so much, but we have no voice in it. And so just
Yeah,
watching from afar, what the U.S. is going to do, um, when
yeah, the international repercussions are huge.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it does just look like because historically, there's always been kind of the ongoing debate, what role should the U.S. play in international
Mhm.
affairs? But everyone knows that the U.S. plays an important role. And so
Yes.
as soon as you take that out, there's kind of just all of a sudden, it's kind of like having a game with no referee almost, and just
Yeah, right.
crazy stuff can happen left and
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah,
it
that's a great
also
analogy.
completely upends, what kind of how the world was kind of organized since after World War II. And
Yes.
before World War II, obviously, or I mean, before before the post World War II sort of era, I mean, obviously wasn't great. So I do have
Sure.
concerns about the future
Yeah,
military conflicts popping up with the Trump administration beyond.
absolutely. Absolutely. Like, go ahead, China, take Taiwan. Go ahead,
Yeah, I
Russia,
mean,
take Ukraine and maybe Poland.
yeah, that's
Like,
right. What other
love
countries you want to
rebel
invade?
spots.
Because everyone's on their own. I mean, I could see, yeah, you could see issues with Iran popping up. You could see North Korea do things. You could see
Right.
Azerbaijan invade Armenia. I mean, there's the list goes on and on. And then there's lots of countries that will see those and then think, hey, I could do it too, potentially. If I
Right.
have some beef to squash with some other country, okay. So
Now's the
um,
time to do it.
yeah, pretty insane. So,
Yeah.
we have this election cycle getting closer and closer to election day. How does the 2024 election impact the Republican Party then in your mind? If Harris wins, is there hope that that could save the Republican Party? Or
Well, um, certainly more so than if Trump wins, right?
right?
If Harris wins, but so much of the genie's been let out of the bottle, right? I mean,
Yeah.
even if Trump were to left the stage, which he's not going to do, well, all those people who've been empowered to be bigots and misogynists, not all
Mhm.
Trump followers, I'm saying, but the
Yeah,
Proud Boys, those
sure.
groups, they're not going to go away. They've been totally empowered by the former administration, and so I don't know how we get the Republican Party back. As I said, I'm not giving up. I know I've talked to other people who are as vehemently against Trump as I am, who are not changing their registration because we feel like we have to see if we can rise from this.
Yeah,
But it's going to be hard because that it is a cult
yeah. Pretty
that
much.
we're
Yeah,
up
it's
against.
hard
Yeah,
hard to argue it's not a cult. That's true. It's pretty creepy. I, you know,
pretty
you
creepy.
know, like the
It is.
you just I mean because he's reached the level where it's like he's become this godlike figure for so many of
Yeah.
his followers where can do no
No,
wrong.
no, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I was listening to this video, Westfield Church, Westfield Center, the center, and the guy's I should know the name, a multi millionaire, and he does this whole thing on Trump and the right time, and he's where we need him, and it was this sort of biblical interpretation
Yeah,
of a man who just got convicted for rape. I just
yeah,
I
it's
just don't.
pretty low point in American history.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like if Trump were to lose, then there might be more people willing to speak out against Trump, and you can slowly get some momentum back to kind of turn the
yeah,
Republican Party
yeah,
into a somewhat normal party, which will obviously still take years.
yeah,
But two losses in a row. I mean, I feel like there's also it's a very strange how there seems to be still a decent amount of Republicans that don't like Trump but are still willing to vote for him or considering to vote for him, despite the fact that he's obviously not a Republican in any historical sense.
right. Ah,
So,
this is a conversation I have with my kids all the time. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is not Republican conservatism. Republican conservatives believe less government, right?
right,
Now, you can have an argument as to whether that's appropriate or not in
sure,
certain circumstances, but they're certainly not telling you to go out and ban books or, I mean, this has been such an obtrusive, everything he says is, government control, right? We're
Yeah,
going to go into the Justice Department, and anybody who's not my political operative is going to get out of the way. Where, it just, everything he breathes is populism, not Republican conservatism at all.
right. Yeah, I mean, any anti-government statements by Trump is really just him wanting to replace, you know, previously existing independent parts of the government with his own parts of the government, which can just be, continue to do whatever he wants. It's just
Exactly.
he's anti-government
Exactly.
in only the sense where
Not
where
his.
it hurts him. So
Yeah. Well, and another thing that just boggles my mind, like, the veteran community and those members who can still, support him after he has shown just utter contempt for anyone who has
right,
put the uniform on, right? You see the police unions are endorsing him.
yeah, that's
When
right,
we lost 5 cops, we lost 5 police officers on January 6th that he never talks about.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't make much sense, and then it also just shows how blind so many people are to these things. Like it's like if you can cause enough chaos, you'll confuse people enough where they don't know what's true.
That's
Uh,
well, that is his political playbook, isn't it? That's
yeah,
very well said. He creates the chaos, so you can't. I mean, it's like his debates, right? You
yeah,
throw enough stuff out there, where are you supposed to start to say that's not true? Like, I don't have enough time, right?
that's right.
Somebody is going to be debating. So it
Yeah,
is that sort of, it's the worst ever. This is the worst our economy has ever been, except under you. This is the worst, reputation we have in the world.
yeah,
Like, Hamas wouldn't have attacked Israel if I was president. Like,
that's right.
what? Like,
That's right. Everything was perfect under him, according to him.
yeah,
And I mean, he now says he'll say statements like, "Oh, I was a better president than George Washington, Abraham Lincoln," and just
yeah,
like
yes,
just
yes,
it's
yes.
unbelievable.
And I have more people who come to my, what was it, the one of his rallies, and he compared it to Martin Luther King.
That's right.
And I have,
I mean, it's just he's like a dumb quote machine. It's just like what are you doing? How is this? I mean, I just imagine future historians, hopefully American ones, if America ever gets its act together, writing about this, just saying like, this is one of the craziest things you could possibly imagine in political history around the world.
yeah. And again, you think that there must be so many almost rans, candidates for president who like said one stupid thing
And they're
and they
dumb.
were
Yeah,
out of the box
that's
on their
right.
outlook and saying, wait a minute, I made one mistake.
I mean, yeah, it's yeah, he's clearly hacked the system in many
Yeah.
ways. What was, how well did you know Trump prior to him running for office?
Well, I knew him well. He was a New Yorker.
Yep,
He would come to my fundraisers if I had them in Manhattan. Just kind of walk in, walk out, which was kind of cool because then people would say, "Oh, Donald Trump was at Susan's fundraiser."
sure.
Honestly, he has always been so nice to me.
Yeah,
I saw him at a couple of times when I was working for Google at the White House. Always very generous. I would see him at other social events. Very kind. But this isn't a personal thing.
yeah. Well, I think that's the interesting thing because, you know, on a personal level, I think that there's probably many politicians that have had kind of sketchy track records that would be considered like, oh, very likable people that you meet in person. Probably even
Yeah,
authoritarian leaders. If you're in the right setting, everyone can be a nice
yeah,
person that you get along with well.
true. Yes.
But when there are stakes involved that affect people's lives and they're making the decisions and you're not,
Yeah,
then all of a sudden things change. So
exactly. No, exactly. And that's what, that's where I come down. He's never, as I said, he's never been anything but very kind to me. So,
yeah, yeah,
but that's not what's at issue here.
no, definitely not. I mean, this is obviously he's you know taking on a role or trying to take on a role again that obviously has a huge impact on the future of entire country and the world. So not quite the same situation, unfortunately. Um,
No. And he says childcare is childcare.
yeah,
That's his answer at the economic club.
that's right.
He
Right.
didn't really discuss the economy.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how many. I mean, I'll be very curious to to see. kind of how like how he continues to talk about his quote unquote policy positions, which are
Yeah.
continuously evolving into different things depending on whatever comes into his mind.
Pro-life, pro-choice,
Yeah,
for IVF, against IVF, like
yeah,
what is it?
yeah,
Yeah, it is. He does evolve quickly. It
yeah,
evolves very quickly. And again, what he has just done, just to, I mean, obviously is a serious conversation in terms of so many categories of people he has insulted and put down, but he has left this nation with a significant portion of our people who do not believe in the democratic process of elections,
yeah.
right? And so many people still think it was stolen, even though there's been no, even though we all know that's not true, right? But people just don't trust the electoral process anymore. How sad is that for a democracy?
Definitely. Yeah, no, it's certainly a pretty sad state of affairs. So we'll just have to see kind of where it goes from here.
I mean, you
Um,
think about it, and then those moments of John McCain, when he said, I called Barack Obama and everybody booed, and he was like, hey, like
yeah,
this happened, this is important, and this is what we're going to do. Al Gore,
yep,
okay, fight's done. Time to, let's get on the business of running our country. Like there have just been some very gentle when George H.W. Bush leaving these beautiful letters to Bill Clinton, like class acts,
yeah,
and standing up for the electoral process, even though they lost.
yeah. I mean, it's reached the point where it just seems like we're teaching people in our country that you just do whatever you want and you might work out. And
Yeah, very
like
true.
how could anyone believe in a justice system, if we elect a convicted felon? Like how could you ever have faith in the system again, in your
I
life?
know.
It's
I
crazy.
know. Yeah, yeah.
Um
And all
so
his attempts to steal it days after the election.
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's right. And he still has been held accountable for the many other things. Obviously, that's just one thing he got convicted of,
Yeah,
and trying to overturn the election results. Obviously, the the most historic one. Still no accountability for, and he's running again, and he's talking about trying to overturn them again if he loses. So
right, right. And oh, did we forget about the fact that he took all these top secret documents
that's right. Yep,
home with him and
that's
then
right.
lied to the FBI?
Yeah, it's just a normal day for him, and
Yeah.
um,
I can't remember what the setting was, but either I think the reporter wrote about it that somebody was talking to Jared about President Trump then and
yeah,
saying, well, you're not allowed to do that and whatever it was. And Jared said, you got to understand the rules don't apply to Donald Trump.
yeah. Yeah, okay. That's right. That's always yeah, I mean, that it's interesting. I'll be curious to see like how, kind of the immunity decision plays out. I could definitely see him using that as a crutch for anything and everything in the future. So,
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's right. What's an official act? Well, if it goes by Trump's definition, it's everything I want it to be. So,
Correct.
um,
Correct. Yeah. I forgot about that. That's pretty frightening.
yeah, you do wonder like what are the consequences of that? Because I mean, the thing I keep talking to people about is, if he is elected again, what does the Supreme Court do? What is the Supreme Court actually willing to push him back on him against? And then, if Trump says to the Supreme Court, well, you can't overrule me because I have immunity, what's that gonna
Yeah.
look
Then where
like?
do you go?
So yeah, it is frightening. I mean, I still think it's complicated to tear down democracy, especially if you're kind of I think Trump is a little lazy about strategy wise of how to do things. I think
Yeah.
if we had someone that was like really, really understood the democratic system well and how it operates, could do a lot more damage. But if you get
Oh, I totally
if you get another swing at it, though, who knows? So
Well, I totally agree. But Donald Trump he doesn't wake up every day to say, how can I mess up this democracy? He
right,
wakes up every day and says, what's in it for me?
yeah, exactly, yeah,
Right.
that's right,
And then that unravels the democracy
right.
in
That's right.
his
So how
effort
do I?
to
Yeah,
do something better for him. Yeah.
yeah,
But that's
yeah.
not really his goal.
Yeah. No, luckily. luckily he doesn't yeah, his idea of destroying democracy is more based off of, yes, how can I benefit myself by doing this? And that's a good thing because
Yeah,
because otherwise it
yeah, right.
could be a
He's
lot
not a
worse.
strategic.
Yeah, if he was more strategic.
Fortunately, yeah,
Yeah.
the one good thing we can say about Donald Trump, he's not a strategic genius.
No, no, yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah, I think that yeah, things could be worse in that regard. So uh
True. Oh, there's a bright side.
yeah, that's right. A little bit of silver lining and a sea of darkness right now in terms of this
Yes.
election. But um so what is the one thing then you would want like sort of leaning Republican voters on the fence to know going into this election, or people that are independent and maybe switch back and forth depending on the election?
And, I mean, look, Kamala Harris has already said she's going to put a Republican in the cabinet. They're going to work, reach across the aisle. I can tell you that the Republicans for Harris effort is 10 times more organized and focused than it was um, for Joe Biden.
Sure.
So I think they're really honest in wanting to bridge this divide. But again, you just stop and think about the future of this country. Take you might be able to make an excuse for one of the things we've talked about today, but how can you take the totality of what this man has done and promises to do to this country and this world and go in there and vote for him? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, just the inhumanity of watching him watch January 6th. No regrets, no apologies. Still blames Nancy Pelosi or Nikki Haley, whoever it might be, when he gets them
Yeah.
confused. And any other mere mortal, that would have been the death knell.
Yeah, it's yeah, you would think that at some point something has to give when it comes to him. And
But you know what? I
yeah,
don't. So you just said speak to the voters
yeah,
and people on the fence, but also it's hard to question the voters who are voting for Trump when our national Republican leaders
true.
are standing by them. Like, I'm sorry, is your job that important? I mean,
Yeah,
God bless you. It's a great job. It was a wonderful honor. How do you sleep at night?
yeah,
You're leading an example to all these people here who say, ah, the heck with it, I'm going to vote for Trump, right? You ran from the United States Capitol or underground on January 6th, Josh Hawley,
yeah,
named 5 other people,
yeah,
and yet you're still doing everything you can to support him. So, Joe and Mary across the country, why should they think that they need to stand out?
yeah. I mean, you would hope that more people would have come out, and I think most people thought after January 6th that you would find a lot more people with the guts to say something, and turns out they don't, and that makes me start to wonder, at what point are these people just kind of envious of Trump's power and authority, where they kind of feel like, you know what, like, maybe one day I can get closer to that, and I'm
Yeah,
willing to back them no matter what, just because I want
to
to be
be
in a
that close
position
to
of
them.
power.
I'm sure
Um,
that's it. I'm sure that's it. But we all swore an oath to the Constitution, which
yep.
is kind of a big deal.
Oh yeah, it's kind of matters. I mean, it's not gonna
Yeah,
none of this is gonna age well for the country
yeah,
in general. Like, I mean, that's the thing is, it's always great when it's always really rich and ridiculous when people, think about their self-interest in politics and think about, oh, letting someone, like Trump kind of grow his authority in the country and get elected again. That's not something that is going to be beneficial in the long run, for your families going forward.
right.
Um, Eventually, authoritarian regimes, especially over time, they just become more and more authoritarian if it were to
Yep,
develop into that. And eventually, they start taking on more and more people who, were once their friends and kicking them out, and until the whole system just explodes. I mean, it's really just a
yes,
ticking time bomb, and that doesn't doesn't end well for anyone. So it's
no,
sad
that's
that
true.
people are so blind to it.
So true. Well, and yeah, right. I mean, again, going back to the elected officials, You're not really blind to it. They see it, but to your
Yeah.
point, they want to be close to the power.
I mean, do you think that? I mean, this is an interesting question. Then, do you think that a lot of the Republicans that just backed Trump after January 6th and the attempts to overturn election results, do you think that they think there will be sort of an after Trump where they could potentially be a president or a higher government official, some
That's
capacity?
a great question.
Um,
That's a great question. Right? Yeah. So one thing they don't want to do is they don't want to get Trump mad because obviously he has no loyalty.
right.
Number two, I mean, the only other explanation is what you just said, that they don't want to run counter to his base.
Hmm.
I mean, so that's the only logical explanation, right?
Yeah. Do you think that they think that Trump could end democracy, or do you think that their thoughts are, oh, it's not that bad and it'll be fine? I mean, are these people actually anti-democratic themselves as politicians that are
No,
backing Trump? So,
no. I mean, I know some of these people. No,
yeah.
not at all.
Okay.
I just, you know, but they knew, come on, come on, come on, come on. You all
Right.
knew this was a free and fair election.
Yep.
You knew that.
Yeah.
So why did you say otherwise? Why did you allow him to say otherwise?
Yeah.
Eh, eh.
It seems like we need to start having a mandatory class for new people in Congress for the history of how democracies die or something. So,
Oh my gosh, totally, totally. Well,
like,
that's probably you've probably done podcasts on that.
I have, but it just seems like something that's is pretty relevant today. And obviously, if you're going to be serving your country in Congress, you should probably be pretty educated about all the things not to do if you want your democracy that elected you to continue. So,
Correct, correct,
um,
correct. Well,
but
but speaking of things that fall apart,
yep.
it's also okay to have dinner with or hang out with people who are deny that or Holocaust deniers.
Yeah, that's right. It never stops with the number of weirdos that have popped up in
Yeah,
popular places amongst Republicans. I mean, yeah, it seems like there's no end to the number of random people that have no business being around people of influence that we hear in the media. I mean,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and
I mean, again, I just think back to that debate when he said, and got away with it. Proud Boy, stand back and stand by.
yeah,
I'm like, oh my God, George Stephanopoulos.
yeah, that's
He's on Joe Biden. What? You just told the Proud Boys to stand by? That's
yeah,
not a denunciation. That's an invitation.
yeah. It is
And they certainly took
crazy.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. I mean, I think it's gotten to the point where yeah, you can't really be surprised by anything he saes. Almost. I mean,
Yeah,
it's pretty hard to find a comment that he can make that would actually offend enough people where it has a major, earth altering impact on the election. It seems like he's pretty
yeah.
much got a base that will support him, you
No matter
know,
what.
yeah, as if their life depends on it. And so then we're just like moving the needle for a few voters in a few states and a few counties.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Interesting times, as the Chinese say.
yeah, for sure. So I'm curious then, what are you currently working on or doing? What are you up to these days besides just hoping the world doesn't fall apart?
planning my move overseas. No, I'm not going to do
Yeah.
that. We just have those conversations for fun, me and my friends. I'm just doing some part-time consulting.
Sure.
Um, one is which many people don't know, when you go look for a car and they give you the crash test rating,
Yeah.
it's based on a male crash test dummy. We
Oh,
don't have anything that's biofidelic to a woman, even though we are overwhelmingly the cases of being seriously injured,
yeah.
70% more likely to be seriously injured in a car crash, almost all the whiplashes, right? Because my neck isn't like your neck.
Sure, sure.
They did use a female crash test dummy, but all they did was they took the big male dummy and scaled it down. So
Oh my
again, it does.
gosh.
So we're working on that. We have a bill in Congress right now to acknowledge that there's some there's some differences
Wow.
avoiding that have very serious implications for safety. A couple things like that still keep me busy. And then as we are today, I'm doing what I can for Republicans for Harris.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Interesting. Yeah. Go ahead.
no, and then just traveling. Um, my husband's fully retired. I'm semi-retired. Both our daughters live in Washington D.C., so it's a nice full life.
Yeah, that's cool, and that's great that you're also continuing to try to make an impact in the world, and not just watching from afar. So, I mean, I bet you
No,
probably never assumed that you'd be a Republican for Harris or a Republican for a Democrat, Joe Biden's.
although the Biden thing was because I worked with him
Yeah,
when I was in Congress, and then the violence, and I just he's a very special individual.
yeah,
Not that I don't know Kamala personally. I've been on a few. I was on a panel with her once on sex trafficking in the United States, and boy, she's super impressed me. But the initial crossover was kind of easy for me,
yeah,
not only because Trump was our party nominee, but because of the feelings and the statesmanship and the bipartisanship that Joe Biden has exhibited through his entire career. So that wasn't really a shocker to my body.
yeah.
I've never been particularly. I mean, look, I'm a moderate Republican,
Right.
right? I was voting for gun control and things like that. So I'm I'm kind of comfortable. I just this is going to sound so self-serving, but let me say it anyway.
Go for it.
I just had so much respect for people who get in the arena, even if we don't agree on one thing.
Yeah,
The fact that you bellied up to the bar and wanted to do this. Let me hear what you have to say.
yeah. That's true. I mean, it is a role that basically opens you up to a lot of attention and criticism that is not easy to deal with whenever you take a stance on a
Yeah,
political issue that's public. And
true.
you know I think, and that's why, with politics getting so bad today, there's so many people that are afraid of ever even trying to get into politics because they feel like how they see how toxic it has become. So instead of putting the best people out there you can to lead your
Yeah,
country, now we're kind of stuck in this situation where we've empowered a party that has basically become just a cult of personality, and you're not getting the
yeah,
best people anymore. So
it's very
um,
true. Well, when
and
I first came
yeah,
out for Joe Biden, I can tell you a significant amount of people in my district that used to work on my campaigns
yeah,
called, left nasty messages, I don't know, letters, texts, denouncing me and how they never want to hear from me again, kind of thing. So,
yeah,
I mean, so what? But like, yeah, and look, when I served, there were no cell phones. That's how old I am, ladies and gentlemen. But you didn't have people like, the social media where so much of that hate is empowered
right.
wasn't really there.
Yeah, I mean, the social media is crazy. It's like the number of insane things you can find there, and I can only imagine how crazy it is to be, a politician that got in the news for something, and then you get a billion people critiquing you on your social
Yeah,
media page. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
but yeah, we'll hope for the best then. I mean, the goal is, I feel like, always for a political system is to have two healthy parties,
Agree.
at least two. If you have, I mean, Europe obviously you
Right.
have a lot more, but if you have, I mean, it's especially important if you have only two to have two healthy parties. But yeah, because otherwise, if you get the far right or the far left to rise the power, then you
Yeah.
get major problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no
No
balance.
solutions. There can't be, um, somewhere along the line, compromise, is frowned upon. We
Yeah,
never we balanced the budget when I was in Congress under John Kasich. We couldn't produce a balanced budget if every one of us in that room didn't compromise them, right?
right.
You have to. You have 435 people who sometimes not even the party differences matter as much as your geography.
Yeah,
what your role is. And so, the idea that now we talk about compromise as something that is not going to be tolerated does not allow us to provide solutions to anybody.
Yeah, it's pretty toxic. That's not how you govern without compromises.
Right?
So to
Yeah,
me, people, as country's too diverse to not have compromise. So
exactly.
um,
Exactly. And I always put it that don't even think about me and you. Think about, like, are you saying that your constituents are smarter than their constituents?
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
because you're representing. And you would never, I mean, I don't think most people would ever even really think that way, but that's kind of where we are now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what's the best way for people to kind of follow you and keep track of your work then?
Oh, geez. The only thing I'm on is Instagram.
Okay. Sounds
That's
good.
that's the limit. I think it's Sue Molinari.
Yeah, it's
Um,
probably a healthy place to
yeah.
be compared to others. So
I did it for Joe Biden.
okay.
And so but then it became nice because I started seeing like friends, grandkids.
Oh yeah,
You
nice.
get to with some people that you might have lost track from, or you only talk to a couple times a year, and now it makes the circle a little smaller. So I've actually enjoyed it, and I block people.
That's super cool. Awesome.
So if you're nasty to me, you're blocked.
That's, I mean, yeah, that's right. You just take care of that. So
Right, right. I'm not in office anymore. I can
that's
block
great.
people.
Bye. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Well, thank you again for coming on and sharing all your experiences, and thank you also for your continuing to be a role model for citizens across the country in times of
Thank you.
pretty historic problems. So
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. The work that you do, the subjects that you tackle are so fascinating. So thank you for having that mind that you do. It should
well,
be required watching and listening.
awesome.
We'd be a smarter country.
Well, thank you.
So I'm proud, I'm honored that you asked me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it. I have to do it again sometime. So.
Great deal.